Okay, amazing. I think we're live. So, hello everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in to this live course report Q&A. My name is Liz Eggleston. I work on Course Report, which is a resource for finding the coding bootcamp that's right for you. So like I say at all of our webinars, and I'm sure you're sick of it, if you haven't looked at Course Report yet, use our directory to find schools that fit all of your needs. Check out our blog. We've got interviews with students, instructors, hiring partners, founders at bootcamps across the world. Tons of reviews, like over 1,300 reviews now, which is amazing. Application tips, tons of other resources, some research about the industry in general if you really want to nerd out. So I get this question all the time. People sort of like skeptics saying, sure, people can get jobs after they go to a boot camp, but do they get second jobs? Do they get third jobs? Can they really have like fulfilling careers in web development? And so I am really excited to be talking with Walter and Julie today because they both graduated from WinCode over a year ago. They both graduated July 3rd of last year, 2014, and they're both on their multiple jobs. So Julie is on her second job. Walter is on his third job, and you may recognize Walter's face because we've actually done a Q&A with him before. So we're going to get to hear from Julie and Walter all about the whole process, their time at WinCode, and afterwards, and I'm really excited for this one. So Julie, Walter, why don't you first just like give us a quick intro, like tell us what you were up to before you started at WinCode. That would be a good introduction. Walter, you go.
All right. So hi, I'm Walter. And before WinCode, I was scratching iTunes gift cards, trying to sell them to international customers of questionable legality. I was an art school dropout before I went to my boot camp.
Totally fair. All right. And then Julie, I think you're muted right now, but if you unmute yourself.
Oh yeah, you are muted.
I'm going to try to unmute you. No, I can't. I think you have to do it to yourself.
Yeah, can you hear us, Julie?
Hi, sorry.
Yay.
Okay, so I was an advertising and creative writing major, so I was working in marketing for almost 4 years after college, and then I decided to join WinCode.
Did either of you have any coding experience? Had you tried to teach yourself before at all?
Not really, no.
Yeah, I had. So when I was in art school, I was playing around with HTML and CSS to make portfolio sites for my friends.
Cool. All right, cool. And then what was your goal in doing a boot camp? Did you both go into it thinking like, I'm going to do this 9-week program, I'm going to get a job as a junior developer afterwards? Like, did you have that clear sort of trajectory in mind, or did you have other goals?
I had a team that I worked on in marketing, and we had a developer on the team. So I thought maybe I would end up doing something like that, going back and working for like an advertising agency. Mm-hmm. I didn't really think about doing back-end work, which is what I'm doing now. So yeah, it was kind of like I went further than I thought that I actually would.
When you were at WinCode, did you decide that you were more into back-end than front-end, or did you figure that out like in your first job?
So I'm not really that great at design. So, I mean, you can try something a few times and then you're not that great at it, and you kind of look for something else to work on. So, yeah, I mean, I think I don't have like the vision that UI UX people have.
That's totally fair. Walter, with like an art school background, even though you dropped out, like with that background, did you find yourself more drawn to like the front end, the design part of it than?
Yeah, actually, so initially I thought that I was going to take more of a front end route, and so knowing that I already knew a bit of front end stuff, I focused on back end during the program, and that's all I've done since.
Cool. Cool. Okay, cool. So tell us about your first job. How did you find your first jobs after WinCode?
Sure.
So while we were in WinCode, our instructors and like our owners were really great about getting us to network, sending us job openings, really exposing us to what's out there. So I think we both sent out, maybe 10 applications to different people, just getting used to the process of applying.
Mm-hmm.
And after I think like 3 or 4 phone interviews, and then there was like 2 in-person interviews, I ended up getting this job that was more Java, which is something that we didn't learn in WinCode, but I was just so eager to get some technical experience somewhere that I thought, whatever grade I'll learn it. I learned Ruby in 2 weeks. I can learn Java. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So your first job was in Java. What company were you working at?
I was working for a company called Outform, and it's more of a hardware company. They do commercial displays in like different stores. So whenever you go into a store and they have a tablet that you like use to interact with products and that kind of thing, they program and sell those.
Got it. Okay, cool.
So, yeah.
Cool. Awesome. And Walter, what was your first job after graduating?
Mine was an internship it was called CareCloud, they did electronic health records for like doctors and hospitals, and so I interned there for 3 months, and I loved it. I still keep in touch with everybody there. I left because it just wasn't the best fit for what I ultimately wanted to do, but great place.
Okay, yeah, we're going to talk about that fit and sort of how you make that decision, which is a difficult decision to make, right? Like after your first job.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you find that CareCloud interview through the same way, sending out applications during WinCode?
Actually, no. So CareCloud, Joe, who ultimately was my manager, he was one of the panelists at our final pitch day. But I did, like Julie said, I sent out like dozens of resumes, lots of places, and I had lots of unsuccessful interviews prior to that one too. It was like any interview process, it was a trying experience. How did those interviews
go? Like you too, Julie, like, because we're talking about the first like technical interviews y'all were going on, right?
Yeah.
Did they get better as you
went
along? What did they? Yeah, tell us.
Yes and no. So I mean, it comes down to some companies are more receptive towards hiring people from non-traditional backgrounds than others. And so some of the companies that I interviewed at that were not exposed to boot camps, those were very difficult and at times demoralizing experiences. But I learned from them. I learned things that I could then apply to future interviews. And then the ones who WinCode had connected with, or the ones who were open to hiring non-traditional backgrounds, those were great experiences. Even the ones that I did not get, the jobs that I didn't get, I learned a lot from them, and I think that those prepared me for the interview that I ultimately did land.
Right. Okay. Cool. Julie, did you have a similar experience? Were there people who were like more and less open to hiring from a boot camp in general?
Yeah, I mean, they want to know why you are in this position. Like, you don't have a bachelor's in computer science. Where did you come from? That kind of thing. But I think you just gain confidence one after the other. You have no idea what they're going to ask you, so you can't really prepare for it. You don't know if you're going to be asked, personal questions like, what do you like to do for fun, or if you're going to have to, like, whiteboard Ruby problems, which is, a really scary thing for someone that's new.
Did you ever have to whiteboard in those interviews?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. But it went fine, but you never know what they're going to ask you, and, you don't have that much experience, so it's always really scary. But, I mean, all you can do is just go in and tell them what you know and let them decide.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, the one other thing that I think was tricky to navigate, and I was actually just talking to another coworker of mine now about this, is that the hiring process is different for, like, when you're applying for these, like, this types of jobs, you're working with recruiters, and there's multiple rounds of interviews, and so you're still also navigating what's like the social etiquette for this. Like, it's actually okay to email the recruiter. That's something that I didn't know. I thought I was bothering them. So those are things that you pick up along the way too.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's best to not be afraid. Like, reach out, send follow-ups. I mean, the chances of getting these kind of jobs is, probably not as good as if you don't have a bachelor's in computer science. So I think it's better just to be aggressive, and that's all you can do.
Yeah, I like that you point out that like the WinCode hiring partners were really receptive, but I think that's really good advice for like future boot campers that like a lot of times the companies that are working with the boot camp that you go to are probably more receptive to like
Yeah.
actually hiring boot campers.
You will have to hustle. You will have to hustle.
How many well, no, I think you answered that. Okay, so you said that you all said that you met CareCloud at the like demo day with WinCode, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you present your final project there and they were like impressed with your final project and that's like how it kind of came about, or?
Yeah, so they had come in as guest speakers prior,
Okay.
but we didn't like interact or talk anything about our technical ability or anything. And yeah, so afterwards, I just went up to him and I started speaking to, thanking him for coming to our pitch day. And then we just started talking about code, and I guess he must have liked our app, because then a few weeks later, I was in for an interview.
Yeah. And wait, Julie and Walter, y'all worked on your final project together, right?
Yeah.
What did y'all build?
We built a learning platform for our coding school, actually.
Cool. That's awesome.
And it's actually, neither of us are still there, but our final project is still being used today, and they keep building on it now.
That's awesome. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Our legacy remains.
Yeah, right. Okay, so Julie, when you got your first job in Java, tell us what like the first month was like for you there. A lot of people that I talk to who are like thinking about a boot camp or are at boot camps now are like worried about like having enough mentorship in their first job, things like that. Like, how did you ramp up into a new language at a new company after graduating from the boot camp?
I mean, when you start at any company, the first month is more just learning how the company works, trying to figure out where you fit in the production cycle. You know, what is day-to-day life there like? What kind of technical things are they working on? So I ended up working underneath one of the more experienced developers, kind of working on small tasks. So it really wasn't that trying in the beginning because he knew I didn't know Java that well, so it was more like a learning curve, and then making small changes where I could, but nothing too intense.
Got it. Did you have? Was it a large team of developers that you worked with?
No, it was actually just one senior developer, and then we had an offshore team in China.
Oh, interesting.
So we had like a 24-hour production cycle. Development cycle. So basically, like, we would make changes, send them over there. They would make changes, send it back. But I mean, what the company did was mostly just like making small adjustments for different clients that were using it.
Got it.
So it wasn't like developing new features.
That makes sense. Okay, so then how long were you at your first job as a Java developer?
I actually only worked there for a month and a half because my current job, it was another face-to-face interview that I had gone in for, and they reached back out to me a month and a half in and said, we want you, there's mentorship here, it'll be really great for your like learning and your career, and it was in Ruby. So I had like a really stressful 2 weeks trying to decide what I wanted to do, but I ended up going for my current company now because, they did promise that mentorship, and I did know Ruby and I liked Ruby better, and I just felt like it was a better fit for me.
I feel like that's probably something that a lot of people face, right? Like starting at one company and then like maybe realizing that there's a better fit for you somewhere else. So that's an interesting process to have to go through.
It's a really terrible feeling. Like, you feel like the worst person ever, but then you leave and then life goes on and that's it, and you did what's best for you. So I would recommend doing the same thing to anyone else who's in that position.
Yeah, well, and I think like mentioning that the biggest sort of motivator was that they like pushed mentorship is like huge. So what's your newest job, or you're still in the job that you took a month after that, right?
Yeah, so I work at a company called MD Live, and we do telemedicine.
Cool.
So, you know, talking to a doctor over Skype and doing consultations over phone, that kind of thing. So it's really cool. Being in the healthcare industry is really cool. I think being in the technical industry and then the healthcare industry and combining those two is just like a great place to be right now.
That's so
So,
cool. I think I've gotten to talk with somebody from MD Live also about hiring WinCoders.
oh yeah.
Yeah,
so that's cool.
Yeah,
they have a few.
Yeah, we have I think 4 now. We had 5. Brian used to work for MD Live, and then now he has moved over to a company that MD Live acquired called Breakthrough.
Interesting.
And they're out in San Francisco. So he actually joined their team. So he technically still works under like the MD Live umbrella, but they're our behavioral branch, so they do like therapy over Skype.
Interesting. That's so cool.
And it's not, and I just want to like say it's not Skype, it's like over video.
Over video. Okay.
I don't want to like get sued. It's not Skype.
That's totally fair. Were you the first hire at MD Live from WinCode? Or was
Actually, Brian was. He was the first hire. And then I came in, like a month and a half later.
Did you have a part in like hiring future WinCoders once you were at MD Live? Like, did you get to? Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Awesome.
I used to go there and kind of like scope out new people. And Walter and I taught a class for Code Academy together, so I would like pop in and sort of check out, you know, who was doing well. And
like when Code Academy did that, like in-person boot camp kind of like collaboration with WinCode, right? They were doing this with a lot of
Julie and I co-instructed those.
Cool.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay, I love that. Oh, cool lives. Wait, okay, so Walter, you were at your internship for 3 months.
Yes.
And you did like it.
I did.
But then at the end of those 3 months, you decided that it wasn't quite for you. Like, what was that decision calculus for you?
Yeah, so I mentioned this too actually when I spoke with you last time too, that like what I was interested in was education technology, and so I knew that I first needed to get some more experience under my belt. So that first job, and I think a lot of people fresh out of boot camps share that experience, is your first job is whatever you can get, right?
Really?
And then after you get that first job, though, you have some experience. You have a sense of like, all right, this is what working in the world is like. I knew I wanted to go back and teach. I knew I liked like teaching code, so I actually went back and I joined at first as a teaching assistant, and then I started writing curriculum back at WinCode up until about 3 months ago.
Cool. So you were teaching like as a coach. You were like in the classroom, and then what was it like to design the curriculum?
So it was really an exciting place to be too, because so designing the curriculum, you're coming at it from a perspective of learning Ruby as a first language. A lot of people who like switch to these languages that are actually used in production today are coming to them starting from something like C or Java or you know, so they have this like very great theoretical understanding, and then switching over to Ruby is then a lot easier for them. Teaching Ruby as a first language to people who are learning it as their first language is a little trickier, because there's a lot of like magic. I hate that word, but there's a lot of magic that goes on behind the scenes. So you have to really find ways to teach it in a way that's like, no, this isn't magic. This is like the implicit stuff that happens behind the scenes. And so it was a fun challenge, and it was, you know, I learned Ruby as a first language, so I understood those hurdles that people went through. So it was great. I loved every second of it. I'm still in touch with WinCode all the time as well.
What was the process like going back to WinCode? Like, did you interview there? Did they like know you before, and so it was kind of like an easy transition and back into the like teaching and curriculum side, or?
I was a part-time teaching assistant while I was doing my internship at CareCloud, and that's the case. A lot of our grads are that like while they take on their first job, they'll also come back and TA part-time, because it's you get attached. You want to get back, and after I left my job, I pulled some shady stuff. I knew I wanted to work there full time, so I just
Uh-huh.
left my internship and I said, I left my internship. Can I work full time now? And
Got it. Got it.
so
That's fair.
But it pulled off.
sorry.
While you were working at WinCode, were you also applying to other jobs, or were you like full time, really focused on WinCode? I know a lot of people at boot camps will like coach or TA at their boot camp while they're still applying.
Yeah, so no, because for me, I that's where I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed the teaching environment,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think there was like one period when I started looking into other options, but for the most part, no, I was like fully there.
I think that's kind of like a misconception that I hear a lot from people that don't really understand like jobs after boot camps, where they're like, well, schools just hire their boot camp grads and then call that a job. And it's like there's so many different
Yeah.
reasons for somebody to work at a boot camp after they graduate. And most people that I talk to like do it because they were like so obsessed with the boot camp when they went there. They're like, I have to work here.
Yeah, it's not like oh God, let just take me so your numbers will go up. No, it's like people come back and they want to TA. So we have some TAs who don't have jobs as well, but I say we, like I'm still there, but like most of the TAs there do have jobs, and they're doing this because they love the program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, cool. Okay, so you all both stayed involved in WinCode after you graduated. Did you like get involved? How else did you like get into the tech community after you graduated? Did y'all do like, I guess you did Code Academy teaching?
Yeah, we did the Code Academy. I volunteered for a nonprofit called Code Now,
Mm-hmm.
which goes into like lower income high schools, and they will have kids apply who are interested in learning how to code. And there's actually like a pretty, not intensive, but they make sure the kids want to learn how to code. There's a process for them to come in, and basically it's a 2-weekend process. So it's like 9 to 5 all day, and you kind of teach kids like really, really basic Ruby, how to use a terminal. But that was like so cool and so fulfilling to see these kids who would have never even like known what coding was be like their faces light up and be so interested, and that was like totally rewarding. And there's another I don't know if it's a nonprofit, but there's another group called Rails Girls, and basically they go into different areas and they have like meetup groups, and I participated in one of they only had one down here so far, but yeah, just girls from the South Florida community who are interested in coding can come in and get another sort of intro into how to build your first Rails application.
Yeah.
So that was really cool.
I'm curious, like, I think that obviously, like, those things are super fulfilling, and it's, like, amazing that you, like, give back and stay involved in the community. How important do you think, though, like, staying involved in those ways are to, like, building your network and getting a job? Like, when I went to Railsbridge in New York, like, as a student, and I was looking around, like, if I graduated from a boot camp, this is like the perfect place to find like a mentor or some connection to a job.
I definitely have some thoughts there. I think that I don't think anyone should go to these events with the mentality of I'm going to these events to get a job.
Yeah.
But that is definitely a positive side effect of something that comes from that. So you do grow your network, you get to know people, but it's important to get to know people on a human level, because you do never know when you're going to need to tap on somebody or someone's going to need to tap on you. But ultimately, like, so Julie and I did the Code Academy Lab stuff together, and that's ultimately because of that. That's how I ended up getting my current job now. Okay,
so let's talk about that. What was that? What are the missing steps there?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So for context, I for the last 2.5 months, I've been working at Udacity in San Francisco, and I'm a content developer. So I'm building content for millions of people across the world through the web. I was reached out to by them. I actually didn't even apply for this job. and they found me on LinkedIn, and I had it's because I listed that I was working at Code Academy Labs there, and
Okay.
that's how they found me. And
Wait,
I mean,
so
yeah.
while we're sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but while you said that, like you had that listed on LinkedIn, what do you think should go on a bootcamp grad's LinkedIn? Like, do you put everything everywhere that you volunteer, everywhere that you teach? Like,
Absolutely.
put WinCode on your LinkedIn? Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking to
put everything you can think of, just put on there, as long as it's true.
Yeah.
Did you put like links to the projects that you had done, like to your GitHub? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, you know, it's like it feels a little like sleazy is not the right word, but like you don't feel great about like just like putting everything on there at first, but when you're trying to get that first job, you do have to hustle. I now like took a few things off, but yeah, at first you put everything on there.
Put everything on there. Put everything on there. Sorry, one more thing. Put everything on there, and if your website that you built has a username and password, give a sample username and password, so it's not just someone going to a blank screen and that's it. Like, great splash page. Way to go.
Yeah. Okay, that's good advice. Okay, sorry, Walter, I totally cut you off.
That's fine. I mean, I forgot where I was going. Do you have a question?
You had it on your LinkedIn, and Udacity reached out to you because you had Code Academy on your LinkedIn.
Yeah, and honestly, like Udacity was somewhere where I would have loved to work for a while, and for them to reach out to me was just like, that was, I think, like the true moment where I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then I went through and I started, and so one of the things that I know gets brought up a lot with bootcamp grads too is imposter syndrome, and it's this idea of like feeling like you're not, you know, like everyone's better than you, and jumping from now Miami, which is a growing but still pretty small tech scene, to suddenly being thrown into, you know, the Bay Area at a company that just yesterday we got our $1 billion valuation.
I saw that fundraise. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I was intimidated at first, but after about a month on the job, I really realized how much the bootcamp experience prepared me for this.
Really?
Yeah, that experience of hustling for your first job is so painful, and I never want to go through that again. But it built up like such stamina, and like you get this attitude of like, all right, I can do anything, and just take what's presented to you and make the most of it. And really, that's what every bootcamp student kind of shares, is that they've been given an alternative situation and they make the most of it. And that has really carried through with me. Like, that has been my guiding principle since I started Udacity, and I couldn't feel more a part of the team here.
Being a content director?
Content developer.
Content developer. Does that mean that you are you doing anything technical there, or do you have to be like on top of all of the languages? Like, what do you do day to day?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a great job. I get paid to learn a language and teach the language. So I started on the senior web dev team. My first course actually launched earlier this month, or last month. It's about writing good documentation. Cool. And now I'm currently working on something that I don't know if I can say yet, but I'll probably be able to say in like 3 days or something like that.
Okay, that's cool.
But I'm really excited to announce it, and I'll talk to you about it.
Okay. Do you like day to day? Are you coding or are you writing?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, you are. Okay.
Both.
Oh, interesting.
So you know, so we've got quizzes, and we have to code in like the quizzes and all the exercises. Ends up being just as much like I can't justify teaching something if I haven't built it myself. So I think that's another misconception too about going into teaching roles too, is that you're not going to be actually coding much. It's like, no, I'm still coding every day.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So would you say, for both of you, and I don't want to use like a specific metric, but like since graduating, has your career trajectory like been upwards? So you can think about that in terms of like salary increase, job title, responsibilities,
The reason that I left like the advertising and marketing industry, I was bored and I felt like I could be more challenged, but second, I feel like the salary trajectory is so much less, because I mean you're not building anything, you're not bringing in that much revenue. Like it's like, the creatives just don't make that much money. So I can say since, I won't say like any specifics, but since I switched to this career and where I am now after a year of working somewhere, I've doubled my salary.
Has your salary gone up since you started working at MD Live? Like, have you gotten a promotion or like a salary change since you've been there?
I haven't gotten promotion. I was hired as a Ruby developer, and I'm still a Ruby developer.
Okay.
But yeah, I got a pretty significant raise, which I think most people will if they're working at a company where they start as a junior developer.
Yeah. Cool.
They just want to make sure that, you know, you're actually producing and, you know, doing what they need you to do in order to pay you the amount that you should get paid as a developer.
Have your responsibilities, like, what does your job look like today compared to, I guess you took this job at MD Live in, like, September
of last year. Yeah.
So it's been about a year? Yeah. What does your, like, day-to-day look like different from when you
started?
So
when I first started, it was sort of the same thing at my other company where, you know, you're the new kid on the block. They want to see how you fit in. You have to learn how the business works. You have to learn how the application works. So you start out small, making small changes, and then you sort of build up. So over the last year, I went from, you know, making small, like, text changes on different pages, and now I'm actually working on developing new features. So now I'm pairing, like fully pairing for almost like 5.5, 6 hours a day.
Wow.
Doing test-driven development, developing new features, and it's really, really cool.
Cool. Okay, so I have a question for you, Julie, because I totally understand, like, taking the first job that you get out of a boot camp. I think that is obviously, like, smart. If somebody's faced with, like, you know, you went to your first company, there was one senior developer there, it was a pretty spread out team, and then compared to MD Live, which you mentioned that they were, like, heavy on mentorship, like, what should somebody be looking for in their, like, ideal first job after a boot camp, I guess, having gone through both of those experiences?
I think you should definitely look for mentorship. I mean, the more senior developers on a team, the better, because then you have more people to look for mentorship in. But at the same time, it's really competitive, especially because there are so many boot camps now.
Yeah.
So I'm just a really practical person. So when I found a job, I thought, great, let's take this, because who knows? You know, I had already done a few interviews and they hadn't worked out. So
yeah.
I think that as a safety net, like, take a job as long as you think that you'll get something out of it, and then you can always keep applying. That has always been my way of doing things.
I think that's totally fair. When you're looking back, I feel like both of you sort of indirectly, like, got your jobs through WinCode, right? Like, it was because there was a WinCode student there, or, like, you were working in curriculum at WinCode, and so they sort of found you through there. But are there things, looking back, that you did not learn at a boot camp, like, that you could not have learned at WinCode, that you've learned being a developer full-time?
Yeah, like everything.
Everything?
Like, not everything, but, like, I mean, there's the spectrum of, like, technologies that you need to know to be a full-stack developer are endless. You know, it's endless. You can never know everything about every language. I think that WinCo does a really great job of preparing you with the basics to get started. Like, you don't start out and you're completely lost, but I mean, you can't. It would take you like a year to read all the Ruby and Rails documentation. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot that you don't know until you get there and start practicing and learning.
That's fair.
I'd say it's a running start. For me, the biggest thing was just how, like, working on, like, interacting all the other departments on a team, but coming from, like, I guess the way to say it is, like, the increased responsibility. You know, I had only really worked retail jobs before then, and then having people who are then counting on you for things, and we got a taste of that, Julie and I and Brian, the three of us worked together to group dynamics, and then it's just taking that on a bigger scale, and it's the running start. You can't learn it all, but it'll prepare you, and then they're still there to support you too while you're going through those experiences too.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, with your second jobs and your third jobs, like, did WinCode stay a part of your life as an alum?
Yeah.
Like,
yes. I mean, I run the Alumni Association at WinCode still.
oh yes, I knew that also.
Yeah. So I'm the one who's nagging all the alumni all the time. But that was like that. They don't pay me for that. That's like, and even still, now that I don't work there, I still do that just because I love doing it. And we had in July of this year, we had our first alumni barbecue, and we had of the 150 plus grads we had about half of them come back for this alumni barbecue. So yeah, so there's always involvement. We're all on Slack too, and we all like talk to each other, and yeah, we've really become a very tight-knit group of people, even as we've grown and expanded to multiple locations and stuff.
Do you rely on like the WinCode network for like work problems? Like, I only hire bootcamp graduates, and I feel like there are a lot of times when, you know, like I don't know the answer, my developer doesn't know the answer, and so like they go back to the bootcamp to figure it out.
Yeah, we have a help channel on our Slack, and people still go back and post there. And even still, like, even as resources, like, I'm going to be needing to, like, I would like to hire some more people who know Ruby, and I'm planning on just going back and looking at, like, the alumni community there.
You need to hire people for Udacity?
Possibly, maybe, I don't know.
And you would think about hiring WinCoders? That's exciting. Of course,
yeah. I mean, if we're in a position where we need people who know Ruby or who know Ruby on Rails, like the first thing that I'm going to think is, you know, who are the people in my network who I know who know Ruby on Rails, and many of those are people who I met either at the bootcamp or through people at that bootcamp. Cool.
Julie, in a similar way, I think you had said earlier that you have had a part in hiring other WinCoders. Like, what is that process like?
So because MD Live has been so receptive to WinCoders, now when each new group graduates, we get like a flood of emails because, you know, the WinCode owners give out our emails and say, like, you know, reach out to these people, give them your portfolios, that kind of thing. So, I mean, it's kind of fun. It's like we get all these emails, we get to look through the portfolios and see the projects, and, you know, our seniors leave it up to us to now decide whether or not, you know, it's worth our time of bringing someone else in. We've hired 5 people from WinCode, so we have a pretty good base. So they'd have to be like really, really good at this point in order to be like worth hiring another junior. But as the second junior, I played a role in hiring like the next 3 or 4 people. I actually hired someone out of the Code Academy class that Walter taught.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's really cool, and he's been really great and is like such a hard worker. So yeah, it's cool. It's kind of surreal to be like, who am I to be like deciding these people?
That's awesome. Wait, do you notice that the demo days that I go to in New York, whenever I go like with students, and I just went to one at Turing in Denver, and the people that I was with, they were like, whoa, their projects are so much better than ours. Like a year later.
Yeah, every single pitch day after ours, we've just been like, wow, our projects were crap compared to these. We have some.
I don't know. Ours is pretty good.
Well, yeah, but somebody in this current cohort is doing augmented reality.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I was just like, okay, yeah, no, they've upped their game.
Right. I think that's actually really interesting because, yeah, I think that's really cool. Okay, so Walter, I had sort of asked Julie this, so in so many words, like, I feel like this is actually like a wonderful interview because I talked to you like a year ago while you were at that interview. Beforehand, like, not a huge like long-term career trajectory. Right. What do you like? Did you have an idea of what your life was going to be like after you did WinCode, and like, has it lived up to that, or?
Yeah. So I can like. This is not an understatement when I say that this has been the best year of my life. It's really just been like completely magical. I never thought that if you had told me 18 months ago I would be, you know, working at this amazing company in Silicon Valley. Um, I wouldn't have believed you at all, and I feel not only am I doing it, but I'm feeling like I'm doing a good job at it, and I feel like I have a career. Yeah, I feel like I do have a career trajectory by all means, and that's the other cool thing too, is that I don't know if it's always going to be in just coding necessarily. Like I'm learning now, touching other parts of the industry that, like, you know, there's fun stuff in business development, there's fun stuff in project management. There's like a lot of other really interesting fields out there that I didn't really consider. So even if I don't stay in coding, I like WinCode was still the best decision I made because it put me on this path. But yeah, now I really feel in control of, like, all right, let me, like, whatever I want to do, I can make it happen.
So cool.
I totally agree with all of those statements. And learning about, yeah, like project managers and different positions that exist in the technology sphere is really interesting. You know,
amazing.
CTO goals.
Yeah, perfect. Love to hear that. I think one of my favorite things that I heard y'all say is, like, when I asked if you learned everything that you needed to know at WinCode, you were like, absolutely not. Like, none of it. Like, we had to learn on the job. Well, no,
that's
because,
like, that's a loaded question. Like, do we have everything we needed to know at the time?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah.
But, like, you know, moving forward, obviously there's a big learning curve to get to a senior developer role.
Right. Well, because I feel like a lot of the skepticism that I hear is like, you can't learn everything you need to know to be a developer in, you know, 3 months or in 2 months. And it's like, yeah, you can't. Like,
Yep.
It's a great running head start, and
Right.
and then you like learn over that year.
It's about reframing your expectations of what you're going to get from this program. If you're going to a program, or if you're going to hire from a program and you're expecting comparable to a computer science degree, you have the wrong expectations going into this. This isn't what it is. This is a launch pad, and there's a huge element of, like, your own personal, like, you have to meet them halfway at this, but they will provide you with all the resources you need to go as far as you're willing to go. The analogy that I always like to use with the students was that it's like the boot camp is like the belayer when you're rock climbing. That like their job is not to pull you up the mountain, but they're there to support you however high you're willing to climb.
Amazing advice.
Yeah, I think that it really depends on how hard you want to work. Like, there are people that were in our class that literally didn't accomplish a single thing because they thought that WinCode was going to just magically, like, shove all the information in their brains and then they were just going to be able to code, like, that they didn't have to put any effort forth. And I can say Walter he probably slept like 6 hours during all of the 9 weeks of WinCode. I slept a little bit more, but yeah, I mean, it really is, you get out of it what you put in. So I would definitely try to get that across to people looking into boot camp.
Well, my last question was going to be if you had any advice for future boot campers or people who are about to graduate, but those were two, like, amazingly succinct final statements. But is there anything that we totally skipped that you want to make sure that our readers and viewers know that we didn't cover?
I think you just have to really be prepared for your life to be changed, like, not afterwards, but during the boot camp. Like, say goodbye to your social life. It'll be there when you get back. Like, you really just need to prioritize because you only have those 3 months to get to just milk everything out of it that you can. And if you're not doing that, then you're wasting your money.
Yeah, and my advice is, like, just in line with Julie's, is to just say yes to things. Because your life is going to be going through a lot of changes, and if you try to resist those changes because of whatever, like, previous blockers you might have internally, then it's, you know, you're missing out on, like, some really prime opportunities that you can catch some really important opportunities if you're just willing to say yes during those changes and just go with it.
Amazing. Well, y'all, thank you so much. Julie, it was great to meet you. Walter, it was great to see you again. And if you're tuning in, thank you so much for joining this webinar. Julie, Walter, we can't thank you enough for being here. I think you've shown us that it is totally possible to have a great first, second, third job after boot camp and to have a really fulfilling career if you hustle as much as Julie and Walter hustled. So if you have additional questions for Julie and Walter or for me, leave them in the comments below in this YouTube video. We'll post this on our Course Report blog also. And if you have questions about Course Report, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm liz@coursereport.com. You can see my email address right below, and we will see you at the next webinar.